Hey guys, it's Pedro back with another video covering VCT Rostermania 2024-2025. For this occasion, I'm talking about Day 5 and all of the events that happened within Day 5. But of course, when I do say Day 5, I gotta address the obvious, taking a little bit of a view onto the calendar. I was able to cover the first 2 days, which was October 7th and 8th of, Rostermania, but I wasn't able to cover the previous or the 2 days after that, meaning the 2 days before today, simply because there was not much new news to cover. Of course, there was plenty of like verbal agreement reports and all that stuff from the sources that you guys are probably already familiar with. As I said, I don't really do that. I mostly cover the official news, announcements that the actual orgs give. And yeah, without further ado, now that we're in the 5th day of WrestleMania, plenty of things have happened from day 3 up until this current point. So let's not delay it any further. Let's just get on right down into it. All right, so the first one I gotta cover is obviously VCT Pacific, and finally the news was made, the announcement was made that DRX has announced the arrival of 2 new players into their squad, them being Freeing and Hyunmin. Both of these 2 players have mostly been working within the tier 2 scene of their respective competitions. Freeing, of course, I'm looking at his most recent showing in VCT Ascension China, in which he was very close to winning the entire thing with Rare Adam, but unfortunately, the team wasn't able to make that happen, losing to XLG in the grand finals. And even so, despite all of that, he definitely caught the attention of DRX as soon as the team's run in champions finished up. And so, with him joining, he's mostly been playing as a Sentinel for his most recent team. And so, you take that into the RX, in which they already have Flashback covering that role. And so one has to think that eventually one or the other has to make a role change in that regard, or maybe both of them make a role change. We'll see what happens into that. And so another person that joined DRX at the same time as Freeing is Hyunmin. And relatively speaking, didn't make much noise compared to like the likes of Freeing or other members within the Korean challenger scene, as in SPG also. But he was able to obviously catch the attention of DRX in the same way that his contemporary did. And so mostly talking about his career up till this point, he mostly been playing in Japan with Crest Gaming. Zest might be the wrong part, the final part that I got that wrong, but still Crest Gaming. Uh, Played in challengers in Japan. Actually wasn't able to qualify for the main event slash group stage of the most recent split in the tier 2 scene of said country, but still was able to distinguish himself as a player that has plenty of potential, and one that can kind of maybe surpass the likes of those that just departed DRX. And why not have that kind of view towards a player like Hyunmin? Because in the little games in which he was able to play in, mostly playing the duelist, mostly playing the Rays, the Jet, those typical agents, but doing so in a very great way against his competition. And so, yeah, Hyunmin picked up by DRX, maybe the replacement for Buzz, and Freeing maybe changing to another different role for this team, maybe making way for Flashback for the latter to retain his position, and for the former, being him, to move to another one. Still, we'll see what happens from that point forward. But yeah, DRX finally getting closer to finishing their roster. Next up is RRQ, and if you guys remember last time I covered this team, we saw the departure of Elmi Moore from the squad at the end of their season, in which they weren't able to contend for a spot in one of in any of the 3 international events that happened so far. And so, going into an update onto them, 2 new people joined, them being Kush, a player, and Warbirds, the new assistant coach for this team. And of course, Warbirds recent the most recent stint that he had within the tier 1 professional Valorant scene is obviously Team Secret. And with Team Secret, they came very close many times to qualify for champions in 2023, and also even like 2024 before or after he parted ways with that org. And in 2024 the same kind of story happened, a frustrating one in which the team played well in the regular season, kind of had their moments of flashiness and can kind of um, reach the same levels as the likes of Gen G, DRX, all that stuff, Paper X, but they weren't able to break that glass ceiling. But still, tons of praise and good words were said about Warbirds and the kind of direction he uh put Team Secret on. And so, with him joining up with Ewok, the head coach of RRQ, it makes one to think that now RRQ is going to finally got that apex or X factor on the coaching side that can finally propel them to being in that desired spot of being amongst the top teams in Pacific. And the same can be said for Kush, another person that stood out in Tier 2, most specifically in Indonesia. And if you take away the matches from like qualifiers and the like, Kush was among the one was amongst the very best players within the league. And if you take away the players from Boom, the eventual winners of that's most recent split in Indonesia, he was top two in terms of rating according to VLR. And so Kush, mostly a initiator player that has been doing so for basically the majority of his career. One that can kind of slot into the team on that role, or maybe even go to a different role. Who's to say? It's up to Ewok and Warbirds to decide on that. But with those two on the lead front for RRQ, then the expectation obviously has to be, qualify for Masters, Bangkok, Toronto, or Champion. So that's the expectation now. That one final thing that I want to touch upon for Pacific is Russ. And as you guys are familiar with Russ, Russ was the IGO for Global Esports. He joined into the team early on in the 2024 season. Ultimately stayed there for 1 year, and with him being the IGO and managing the team in that role, Global, as I said, wasn't able to kind of scratch the surface at all. Far less than the likes of RRQ. Obviously, it was a pretty struggling year, all things considered. And so, after Global kind of experienced that rough season, then obviously they also talked about their need to improve and kind of rebuild for next year. Just obviously figure out the fundamentals to be a better squad. And so we saw Lightning Fast and Ben Kai depart the team earlier on in Rostermania, and now we've seen the third domino fall in the lineup, this time being Russ. So Global is now without an IGL officially, and now they have 3 vacant spots to fill from now until the start of next season. And yeah, we'll just have to see who they look at as their replacing IGL for the outgoing Russ. Wait, stop the presses, stop the presses. I just have to include this real quick before I publish this video for day 5. And literally brand new breaking news. I can tell you right now. T1 found one of their newest players for the team in 2025. That is Meteor. It is official now. Meteor is now with T1 after spending 2024 with Gen G and basically being the most successful Korean slash Pacific team in recent memory. Of course, Meteor, one of the best Sentinels in the world, best players in the world, definitely had his moments throughout the entirety of 2024. And when it became evident that he was going to look for a new squad, it kind of became expected that not much time will kind of pass before Meteor found his new home. With Gen G kind of saying that they were in the process of still being in discussions of having a new contract in place between himself and them for next year and beyond. There was a little bit of hope about him possibly still being with Gen G and kind of continuing the team from 2024 into the next season. But obviously, that's not going to happen. They didn't come into agreement, and Meteor decided to go for another team. And this team is T1, and now we're now seeing a much better picture of what Pacific is going to look like. Not only does Gen G lose one of their most important assets that helped them become such a great team in 2024. Now they have to deal with another team in T1 that, after making the move to have a full Korean roster, now they have what many say is the most exciting and promising team for 2025. And why would one kind of not support that claim? You know, you got Carpe, you got IZU, you got Stax, you got Meteor, and you got Sylvan. You know, these players up together on paper, now they put up a decent, very exciting roster, and one that kind of hopes that they might match the 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 results that Gen G had. Still, this is during the off season, and so this is still brand new, and what I'm saying might, come to backfire in due time. But nevertheless, this doesn't take away how much of a big move this is. And Meteor into T1, it's happening. It's finally here. It's finally official. And goddamn, great move on T1's part to get serious, to let everybody know that they are in the hunt for the VCT Pacific crown. And so, what better way to do that than announce this move? Meteor to T1. Goddamn. And now finally we move on to EMEA, and goddamn, like, not much movement has been going on in this region. I was only able to talk about Latex departing from Navi as their assistant coach, and after that is basically it. But now we're seeing some updates, some new moves within a given lineup, and the first one that I'll cover for today is Carmine Core. And uh, a few days ago, they announced the departure of Shin. Shin from the team. Obviously, he was like he's the last OG member remaining from the org, joining in the Valorant scene in May of 2022, and obviously he was a part of that first ever roster for that org. Stayed there through 2022. Played in 2023 with Carmine Core. That team that uh, definitely roused a lot of feathers, specifically from one known bald man. In Sideshow. Won't get any further into that, but Shin was in that, and despite all the struggles that the team experienced, uh, he stayed afloat. He stayed on board for 2024, and it was there in which, as I said, Carmine Core stood out, had their best year so far in their stay in Valorant, winning Masters, winning EMEA kickoff, appearing in Masters Madrid, and of course, they weren't able to um, build on that success for Shanghai and Champion Seoul, but all things considered, when you compare this to all the past years that they've had, a very successful one, I would say. And it's with that in mind that they will move on without Shin. And Shin, obviously, a tough way to say goodbye to an OG member, but yeah, definitely will be one that can be a good replacement for any other team that are looking for his kind of services. So yeah, Shin without Carmine Cole for the first time is finally going to happen, and it'll start in 2025. And now dipping our toes into the Turkish scene for the first time. It's pretty weird or strange to have you guys see a tweet from a tier team, Galatasaray. And but bear with me. There's a reason for this, and the reason being that one of their players decided, or more so, one of their players have reached an agreement with a tier one EMEA squad to join them for 2025. As for specifically who that player is, it is Loon, or maybe Lone. My apologies to him and the org for getting potentially his name wrong, but still, Loon as announced by Galatasaray in the tweet that they put up yesterday at the time of the recording. Um, he will join BBL. He will join BBL Esports as their newest duelist player. And when you put the word duelist and you put the word Turkey together, it's always is going to almost always produce great results. I mean, we at this point we've seen plenty of players from Turkey basically raise hell in a good way for their teams in the past 2 years. I mean, goddamn, there's something going on in Turkey that allows their players to just be a monster from the jump whenever they do get into Tier 1. And yeah, like I could give you some examples on that. Alpha Year, then it's Hero in Fnatic, Alpha Year and Hero in Fnatic. Then we got obviously Riens, we got Woot, those players in Heretics that were basically became superstars in 2024. And then we also got, like, in a way, the people that are similar to Loon, them being more focused on the Pacific Boys, and it featuring a very good squad that almost made the jump to Tier 1 in Ascension EMEA by reaching the grand finals. Obviously, they weren't able to make it by losing to Apex, but yeah, it just goes to show the level of talent that there is in Turkey. And Loon, uh, Turkey has definitely been able to see a lot of him, and without a doubt, he's been playing as one of the top dogs in his role, or maybe even also the entire region in itself, and definitely been one of the highest rated players in the split in an overall sense in his most recent split this year. And so, no doubts about Loon's talent, no doubt about his potential, and it appears that BBO has no doubt as to who they will have as their new duelist. So, Loon to BBO. Right now, heading on over to Americas. I gotta just mention the obvious, and as you can see right here, the inevitable finally happened in which Demon1 is officially out of NRG. There's been more than rumbling since of the offseason, or not even the start of the offseason, more so like immediately after NRG's elimination from VCT Americas, in which changes have to be made, and basically NRG was beginning to hit the reset button. And so, with the team kind of uh being underwhelming in relation to the expectations they had before the start of the 2024 season. They decided to now part ways with a few long-standing members of the squad. Obviously Vic, Crashies, Chet. Those people that made up the majority of the Optic core in 2022. They're gone, and so now Energy's in a new era. And one of the adjustments that they also made in conjunction with that is Demon1 leaving the team. And so it started out with reports being made about NRG coming to verbal agreements with the likes of Bonkar as their new head coach. And then it came to them coming into agreement with Mata and Verno. And then that brought out the potential of like Demon1 not even being in the team anymore. And then that came up with other reports that Demon1 was no longer screaming with NRG, and then he was screaming with other squads, thus hinting at his potential exit. And now, after plenty of talk, after plenty of time talking about him and his future, now one part of it is clear, and that will be that he will not be an NRG player in 2025. And so Demon1 is gone from NRG, and soon after, or maybe even at the same time as this announcement was made, NRG revealed their full roster for 2025. And as you can see in the tweet below, they already have it mapped out, and I can just read it out to you. It'll be Sam, Finesse, Ethan, Mata, and Verno. And yeah, they didn't say it right here, but Bonkar is going to be the head coach of the squad. And a pretty interesting move that NRG made, basically signing two guys of Oxygen Esports, a team in the second tier of North America that almost from wire to wire stood out as one of the best teams in the region in that level. And one major reason for that is Verno's play, Verno's um, development as a young player. He obviously joined the org, played in the academy for a little bit of a few months or maybe even a year to be exact, and then from then on moved on to the main roster in Oxygen, competed with them throughout the org stay in Valorant up until the end of the season in 2024. Been with Bonkar for I would say just as long as he's been in the org, and so Bonkar and Verno developed that connection, that familiarity with one another, in which Bonkar expects the things that Verno brings, and then Verno expects the kind of coaching that Bonkar brings, and the kind of coaching that Bonkar brought about led to Oxygen uh, finishing almost in the top, or maybe even at the very top of the league standings in NA Split 2. Unfortunate that they weren't able to translate that form to playoffs, but in NRG's minds, they did enough to sign them for 2025, and so they will join the likes of Som, Finesse, Ethan. I don't need I say more about those three players: Ethan, world champion; Finesse, and Som. Well, Som, at one point was one of the best controllers in Americas, and Finesse. What else can I say about Finesse? Masters champion, uh, veteran IGL, one of the best IGLs in the world for various years. And yeah, another person that I also want to talk about is Mata. And Mata is an interesting character because in the same way that Oxygen was at the top of any challenges for a good part of the 2024 season, Mata has been kind of standing out as one of the best players in North America Tier 2 in its whole. I remember I believe that he was like within the top five of overall rating in terms of Split 2. And it just goes to show how good of a player he is. He's been playing in Valorant for many years, and it'll be his first time actually appearing in Tier 1. And so massive congrats to him on that. Previous team was in Moist X Shopify, which was the merger team of Moist Moguls X Shopify Rebellion, and that team ultimately was like the last, finished third place in Split 2 playoffs, basically meaning they were one game away from making Ascension Americas. Soon after that competition ended, Ascension to be more exact, Mata got the heads up, got the call up, and he said yes. And so now we have NRG 2025. It is official now. Now there's no more moves from them. And so massive dub on that for the team. Heading into 2024, the team finally finished their roster with less than 3 weeks or 2 weeks before the start of kickoff. And now it's a different story. Now they have a lot of time to try to coalesce with one another, try to be a team, and they have from now until like January, a few months to get everything all together. And now, hopefully, as the players and the org kind of put it, now the expectation is to erase 2024 from their minds and now focus on 2025 at the very least. So, NRG 2025 finished. And of course, I gotta talk about Sentinels, and whatever move that happens within Sen City, of course, I gotta talk about it for the clout. And pardon my shamelessness, but it is what it is. So, anyway, we got the roster down, we got the coaches down. We already know a good idea as to what Sentinels is going to look like in 2025. But there was one thing that wasn't all that clear: who was going to be the sixth man. And six man and Sentinels together kind of in the past brought about some interesting storylines. And last year it was Zelsis as the sixth man, and then eventually he replaced Pancada at the start of 2024, maybe even like at the late tail end of the 2023 season, off season. And you guys already know the story. With Zelsis there, Sentinels became a juggernaut for Americas at the start of the year, and also like at the very end of the year also. And so, with that said, now the attention was now put on to who's going to be the sixth man, who's going to fill that spot after Curry left the team, and so they didn't really waste any time. You know, they kind of already had this player, the one that I'm showing. They already saw him compete in an off-season event. As per who this guy is, it is Redux, and he's a young player. He was a part of Oxygen Esports in the same way that Bonkar and Verno was a part of that team also. And so, obviously, when you got a team like Oxygen and you see the kind of players that were a part of that team, you know, Verno, Redux, and then even like Dapper and Mitch, you got a good team. And so, with Redux, you got a very young player, 17 years old, one that can definitely improve and maybe eventually, you know, replace one of the Sentinels members, you know, if one isn't playing as well. And, you know, it might be an opportunity for, you know, someone like him to get that experience on the main stage. And so, yeah, like, it's clear that Sentinels saw some talent within Redux and didn't want to kind of have his stint with the org and at that aforementioned Red Bull event, and so they now locked him down as a six man. He will be a part of the roster, and now we have the full lineup ready to go for Sentinels for the 2025 season. Sentinels Redux, he is official now, so yeah. And of course, you know, I can't finish up day 5 with Leviathan, and soon after the news of Demon1 leaving NRG came out and became official. Leviathan now finally made a move of their own. You know, a few days after the end of their relationship with Mazzino, they found uh, presumably the new duelist for the squad. And that duelist is, as you see in the screen, Demon1. And it's clear that, you know, given a few rumors that surfaced throughout this past week, I would say, or these past 2 weeks, Demon1 was looking for a new home, and one of the teams that was up in contention for that was Leviathan. He was even seen screaming with a few players from that team, you know, from screenshots made by other people, and that brought about an interesting dynamic as to whether or not he will be actually be a part of Leviathan. And this video, this post, 100% confirms it. And Demon1 will now head over to Latin America, represent Latin American org after having, I would say, quite a disastrous 2024 season with NRG. For NRG, they found a new team to field. For Demon1, he now finds a new team to join. It'll spark a little bit of a EG 2023 reunion, of course, you know, and Demon1 were teammates of that famous EG 2023 squad, the team that won champions in Los Angeles. And one has to think that, like, with Demon1 and remaining or returning back to being on the same team, you know, their synergy will return to what it was, you know, that same bombastic, incredible synergy that helped EG reach the top of the world. And so with Demon1 now into the squad, now one has to think, you know, Leviathan is not playing around in their hopes of retaining their VCT Americas championship into 2025, you know. And one other thing that I also want to touch upon is with Demon1 into the team as the duel is what's gonna happen with Aspas, because as I said, you know, in the same way that plenty of reports was made about Demon1 and plenty of like conversation was done in relation to that, the same can be said for Aspas, you know, given that as of now he remains officially a member of Leviathan, but it's clear from the moves that has been reported from himself and his camp that he's looking for another team to join, and and he's looking for a new atmosphere to be in. Maybe if that atmosphere is going to be in Americas or EMEA or maybe even Pacific, and of course, you know, as I kind of talked about in the past, he was even close to joining Bleed Esports and moving over to Pacific in the same way as like another main great player did a few years ago. You know, I'm looking at EA, but with Bleed getting booted out of VCT. Now he has to kind of look for another org and find an org that can be able to pay out his very lucrative, very steep buyout. And yeah, like plenty of questions are going to be about that, about what's next for Aspas. And in a way, plenty of questions are going to be done for how Leviathan will kind of continue their momentum from the end of this year, in which they finished third place overall in Champions. Will Leviathan remain a monster in the domestic side? That remains to be seen. And will Aspas kind of find a new home? That remains to be seen as well. But in due time, we'll definitely figure out what is next or what happens next for both parties. But for now, I can say that Leviathan has a pretty good squad in anticipation for 2025. So Demon1 to Leviathan, that is finally official. Hopefully, I get to maybe interview him in Spanish, and maybe he'll surprise people and just kind of talk about that language. So cheers on that. All right, and so that wraps up day 5 of Rostermania 2024-2025. Plenty of things have been talked about in this day. I'm glad I was able to do that after not doing so for the past 2 days. So hopefully I can continue this uh, trend for tomorrow at the very least. And so that said, as you can see right here, these are the teams in Americas that have their rosters finalized, and we'll probably see no more movements from these teams. All we gotta wait for is just the movements from the other squads, and when such move happens, I'll be sure to talk about it. I'll be sure to cover it, and I'll be sure to show it in this very channel. So that said, day 5 done. Rostermania 2024-2025. This has been Pedro Romero, and I'll see you guys in the next one.